Welcome everyone to episode 385 of Just Joshing. I am your host, Joshua Pentalaresco. I write stuff and podcasts too. Today, Dave Butler joins the podcast. I did this interview right at the beginning of COVID-19. Dave is awesome. That's really the only word to describe him. He's a cool, down-to-earth, smart, sophisticated dude with a really good heart of gold. Like, he has a great heart. I've loved that he's done like guitar things every day. I love that. I just love the fact that he's still such a productive person even in times like this. And he's a great writer. I really, really enjoyed his Witchy Eye series. It's my personal favorite of his, but he's done a lot of other great books. Like I said, man, I could keep going on and wax philosophical about him all day, but you're going to hear this great conversation where maybe if you're an agent, you're not going to be a big fan of it, but it is a real, it's real good speculation on what the future of publishing is going to look like when this is all over. Today I did the Wall Wishes Challenge with Susie Vidori, and I loved it. Susie came to me with wanting to do a creative thing for her book launch. Wall Wishes, I'm a big fan of Susie's work. Wall Wishes is a very, very amazing, like part of an amazing series, and I love that she's just going out and going for it, and she's embraced the hybrid authored path. I knew she would eventually, because there's no way it would stop her, but it was fun to do. I had a blast. It's up on YouTube now. I'll have the link will be in the description below. And while you're at it, make sure you order Wall of Wishes before tomorrow. All right, let's just get to our conversation there, shall we?
Think you have what it takes to survive? Then get your ass to Mars. Get Your Ass to Mars is the latest simulation sensation courtesy of Indy Imprint. You are pitted against the hostile nature of Mars. Can you survive and pave the way for future colonists? Or will you succumb to the many pitfalls and obstacles in your way? Get Your Ass to Mars, the Dragon Edition, is available now on PC and Steam. Go to indyimprint.com for more details.
Yeah, I apologize. This is again, new computer. You got to kind of figure out how to make it tick. So I think this is the way we're going to do it from here. So Dave, What's happening tonight?
Pretty much this. That's it. You got a visitor head behind you.
Yeah, it's my dad. It's
all right. It's all good. No, this, and I got to go back to writing pitches. I had a good conversation with my editor at Bain, and I owe her a couple of pitches.
That's awesome.
I asked her, what should I write next? We talked about some ideas. I'm going to send her descriptions of two possibilities.
Well, I really like your Witchy Eye series. I enjoyed it. I'm enjoying it so far anyway. I got book one. Well, I had book one, and now it's in a storage locker. I was reading it. I was enjoying it. Then I moved to Vancouver, chased my dreams. And then the apocalypse happened, and now I'm in Windsor, Ontario. So yeah. So it's in a locker somewhere. But I was really enjoying it. It felt very traditional, but you told the story in such a unique way. It felt very different. I was really enjoying it, man.
Thank you. That's sort of always the goal. This is why Hollywood stories pitch themselves as it's like X, except whatever, right? It's like Wizard of Oz, except that the main character is a crackhead. It's like, right? You want to convince the person look, the big investment in you're asking you a writer, especially, but also you a filmmaker or TV show producer, is not the money. That stuff is really, the money is cheap to a person who consumes stories these days, and that's great. It's the investment of time.
Yes.
Right? If I ask you to read an epic fantasy novel that's 200,000 words, if you're really fast, you're going to read it in 6 hours. And if you're not really fast, it might be 12 or 20, right? So I'm asking you to spend like a day to 3 days of your life. So you want to promise, hey, listen, this is something. It's like what you know, it's like what you like, but it's not exactly the same thing, because then you could just reread Harry Potter. You can reread The Lord of the Rings. So thank you. That's absolutely the goal, is to be familiar but new.
Well, traditional publishing is definitely more formulaic, and I think a lot of authors forget. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, within the formula, but the real challenge is trying to find your own pitch. How does this work for how can you bring you into the equation in a way that fits this pitch? Because again, They only publishers buy things that they are comfortable with. So there has to be a degree of familiarity, but you have to bring something that's you to the table. And the best books or the best stories, I think, bring something of themselves into that. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, this sort of maybe goes down a rabbit hole, but
love rabbit holes.
From the view of the traditional publishing, absolutely part of the issue is you're asking the publisher to invest their money and time, and they want something that's a safe bet, right? So it should be something that looks familiar. The other piece is there's a bookseller's problem. And think about this pre-internet, right?
Yeah.
The issue is you, the bookseller, get the book. You have to know where to put it.
Yeah.
You have to know where to put it so you can sell it. And so genre matters. And so breaking genre conventions is something that you don't really want to encourage. You want people to basically stay within genre. And so stuff that is like, sci-fi, but also it's a detective story, like you want to be sort of wary of that because I don't know where to really sell that. That problem doesn't really exist in the same way on the internet.
No, it doesn't.
And so micro genres can flourish. And look, if you're pitching your novel to an agent or an editor or Random House, you should say this is a fantasy novel. You shouldn't say, this is a piece of noir magical realism with shades of steampunk. Like you're going to lose people. But you can totally do that on Amazon. You can absolutely say, and Amazon will let you list 12 categories. And frankly, I think they make up new categories. And if they don't have them, you can just make up your new genre name and stick it in there in the description of the book.
And that's the cool part about indie publishing is you have your own, indie publishing is completely about establishing niches. Traditional publishing already has their niches.
And there aren't very many of them, and they're kind of big.
Yes. Exactly.
The smallish niches are pretty big.
Yes, absolutely. I know somewhere out there, somebody is making Penguin Steampunk, and it's a bestseller on that genre. Totally.
This is why you get like weird categories of porn, right?
Yeah.
Mastodon porn.
Yeah.
This is where you get genres like lit RPG, which big publishing can barely imagine, or dungeon core, or I have a couple of different friends who write harem novels, right? And this is the internet empowers micro genres. And by the way, boy, this is like headlines today and yesterday. I mean, I think we'll see. It's early days yet, but I think that the effect, I don't know what's going on in Ontario, but in most of the U.S., we're basically, a lot of stuff is shut down.
Yes. Same here.
Restaurants. Okay.
Yeah.
Unsurprising, right? Restaurants, but bookstores. So indie bookstores have been going through a revival in recent years.
Yes.
We're talking about businesses that are low margin. They don't keep a lot of cash on hand. They use today's receipts to pay today's bills. They're going to get massacred. They're going to drop like flies. There's no way the $2 trillion that's going to be overseen by Nancy Pelosi's new stimulus committee is going to go around and fund independent bookstores. They're dead. Barnes & Noble just announced today, and I'm not saying this with glee, I love those stores. Every summer I tour the West Coast, including went up to, by the way, Indigo in Vancouver. I tour independent bookstores. I love independent bookstores. They're going to get massacred. Barnes & Noble today announced that they shut down 400 stores. That's out of just over 600. Two-thirds of their stores.
Yes, but actually there is a counter. Did you see the thing about what the independent bookstores doing an Amazon-like delivery service?
Sure, they're trying to sell online.
Yeah.
God bless them. I hope it works.
It might. It might.
Yeah, of course, if it does, then you ask the question, well, are they going to really be bookstores? Aren't they better off just becoming independent online vendors?
Well, here's the thing about this going forward. Like the big question coming out of this. Okay, so here's the extremely crappy bad news about what's going on right now. Most small businesses are about to die. Most of them, not all, but most.
Depends on kind of how they're capitalized, but many are going to die.
Yeah. We'll say for the sake of argument, 2/3. We'll probably
that's true. Fine.
Yeah. We'll say 2/3. The remaining third is going to be looking at their storefront as a challenge. Because here's the thing that really kills me about this whole thing is there hasn't been a moratorium on rents and mortgages. If there had been, some of these businesses would still be gone, but wouldn't be anywhere near as many. But since that's not the case right now, the challenge is, okay, how do I pay my rent next month? Well, what can I do to put my business online? My dad has a storefront, okay? He's closed. He can't take customers in directly. He's still, however, in business, simply because of what? Pardon? I can't hear you.
What kind of store is it?
He sells vitamins, herbs, like herbal stuff and that kind of stuff, but he also makes some of his own stuff. So what he's doing is he's shipping his stuff everywhere. So he's like, the storefront for him at this point is less important than the actual than his online delivery. Now, if the post office went down, that would be a real problem. But if the post office goes down, we're all screwed. Like that's just the end. That's just the way it is. But the thing is, right now, my dad's a small businessman. He started doing this years ago, right? Because he knew that there would come. You'd have to have an online component to your businesses. So the challenge for the small businessman going forward is really simple. Even for the big business, how can I reach my online base in a way that serves better than Amazon? You can beat Amazon on service. That can be done. You can't beat Amazon on price, but you can beat them on service. So if you can offer something that's unique in your storefront, right? So when you come back, when this is all said and done, and a third of these businesses will figure this out, right? You're going to actually question how big of a storefront you actually need. In the long run, right? I question property values going forward. Because again, if you're a business, if people are working from home, because I think that's going to remain true to some degree after this is over, why do you need a skyscraper? Why do you need all this excess land and space, right? If you can do a lot of these things online. And I know, like, going forward, small businesses are going to ask themselves similar questions. Because they have to. That is the challenge right now. Does that make sense?
Look, absolutely. Now, let me sort of respond directly to that, and then I want to go back to the point I was making, which
sure.
Actually you're disagreeing with. You're just giving a different nuance to.
Yes.
I've been involved in several major industries in my career.
Yeah.
Okay, big law, big accounting, investment banking, publishing. They're all headquartered in big cities like New York and Toronto, and there is no good reason to do that anymore.
Yes.
Except vanity and the convenience of going and meeting your buddy, the investment banker, for dinner. But you can control your costs if you move to Winnipeg or St. Louis, right?
Yeah.
You can use the cost savings to recruit nationally. Your chance of being hurt by disruptions like this disease, for example.
Yeah.
So I think it would be wise. I don't know whether we will. I think it would be wise to question the value of these sort of megalopolis cities. I think that is fundamentally a kind of an 18th century thing. I don't think we really need those. Now your point about indies. So let's say indie bookstores all survive. That's great. I hope they do. I really do. I hope they do. But if they survive by transitioning to being more online vendors, this is the point where I was going. We're moving more and more into a world where genre is a very flexible, customizable thing.
Yes.
Right? Of those 400 closed Barnes & Nobles, 400 are not going to reopen.
Nope.
I don't know how many do. Maybe it's 350. Maybe it's 200. Right?
Absolutely.
By the way, there's a disruption in Trad Pub there because all those books that in those stores that close have to go somewhere, and I suspect where they go is back to the publisher, which then they show up as returns in the author's statements. The publishers take a hit, the Trad Pub authors take a hit. Like, that whole side of the business takes a blow. But I think we move closer to more and more online selling of books, even online selling of physical books.
I agree.
I hope these are a part of it. But one effect is I think we're going to move further away from genre.
Yes. Oh no, I actually agree. It's already happening. Like you can see it even some traditional books. Even now, there's a lot more. There's gradually been more and more bit of cross pollination. I look at something like Fonda Lee's Jade series. It's like old school gangster. There's a little bit of crime. There's a little bit of crime in her work. There's a fantasy element for sure. It's definitely a fantasy book, but there's crime. There's some science fiction. There's business. There's a lot of little genres in her work. I think it's brilliant. I think it's some of the best stuff out there. You look at some even more traditional fantasy. If you look at something like Brandon Sanderson, he incorporates a lot of systems into his and rules and like little, like there's these little nuances that fit have traditionally fit in a lot of other genres, and you're looking at that and going, authors are already starting to do this gradually. What this will do, I think, is it's going to speed up that curve tremendously, because what's going to happen now is publishers are going to be like, oh shit, I don't know what's going to work next year. So what is working right now, and they're going to look at the Amazon list. They're going to look at all the indie publishers doing what they're doing, and they're going to have to retool and rethink about what's working going forward. I think that is an inevitability, because the traditional publisher's biggest disadvantage for the last 10 years has been speed. They have not been able to keep up with Amazon. They haven't been able to keep up with indie publishing. They haven't been able to, they've lost romance. Romance is pretty much is its own little, it's in its own world right now. And so if traditional publishing in any form or fashion is going to survive this, they are going to have to reinvent their wheelhouse a little bit and going, okay, well, we know these formulas sell, but okay, what is new? What is different? And I think also we're going to basically, when we're through this, we're going to want as much optimistic and hopeful stuff as possible. I really think that post-apocalyptic thing is going to be dead for a while.
Yeah, I think from a Tradpo point of view, that particular genre had mostly sort of run this current course.
Yes,
but that's right. I think their cost structures are bloated. Big New York offices are not good. I think the way they market assumes physical bookstores. Premier display space at the front of the store in Barnes & Noble is sold. You go in there, and the reason there's a big stack of Sarah J. Maas books is not because she's the best author who ever lived. It's because their publisher bought the right to have a big stack of Sarah J. Maas books. I'm not picking on her. I'm just saying that's what I saw when I was at Barnes & Noble yesterday. Okay, that space is sold. Well, when that space goes away or loses its value as bookstores get smaller and smaller, publishers are going to figure out a new way to market, and I think they're going to be looking, to figure out new ways to find authors.
Absolutely.
So.
But that's also true for authors themselves, because authors have to look at, okay, how can we reinvent the wheel today? We can't just look at our intellectual property, because I do believe that's how I look. I don't just look at it as a story, as our intellectual property, as just a book. We have to look at it as an audiobook. We have to look at it as possibly gaming merchandise, as a merchandise, because ideas are quantified. Our ideas quantified are expressed in physical ways. Now, not necessarily even digital, but that can also be a digital property. But we have to really be looking beyond just the book. Not that there's anything wrong with the book. The book is still a very valuable thing. Lord knows I'm reading more these days. I'm sure everybody is, right? But I think, okay. Witch Yai could be a heck of a cinematic movie. Witch Yai could be a great video game, right? You could do some cool T-shirt stuff with that too, because there's some really cool ideas in that, right? And I think as an author, you have to go forward and think to yourself, okay, yes, this is a book, but where else can I go with it? What else can I do with this so I can generate more than just one revenue stream? And if a publisher's buying your work, are they buying just the book rights? Are they buying all the rights? And how much is that actually worth? I think we're going to all become more sophisticated businessmen and women going forward. Does that make sense?
Two comments. One, there's a Robert Fripp quote I love. I don't know if you know Robert Fripp.
I do not.
He's one of the world's great guitar players, but he's very cerebral, so he's never hit the mass audience. Some of the other great ones has. But he founded King Crimson. He's most famous for being the founder of King Crimson. Robert Fripp, in an interview, and I think Music Maker magazine or something in the 70s said, and he was talking about music, he said, the future belongs to mobile intelligent units.
Yes.
And I think that's turned out to be true of music. I think it's turning out to be true of publishing. So something was already true of authors, but that most of them don't realize, in my experience, is that an author is not an employee of a publisher. An author is an entrepreneur. When you sit down to write a book, it is an act of entrepreneurialism. You are the owner. You're the chief executive and the shareholder. You are probably also the head of marketing and the head of sales, as well as the head of manufacturing.
Yes.
And you have to think that way. And if you think that you're writing a query letter to audition to be the employee of a publisher, you're fundamentally misunderstanding what you were doing, and you're hurting your odds of being successful.
I agree.
I think that publishers who survive are going to have to become more nimble and creative and flexible. And I think authors who prosper, they'll always be the ones who get lucky.
Absolutely.
The Harry Potter is a fluke. It is a fluke. And, God bless her. She seems like a nice person to have experienced a fluke. But the authors, the large number of authors who make a living, who prosper, who reach an audience, they are gonna do that by seeing themselves as the owner, by seeing themselves as an entrepreneur, by owning their own brand, by carefully choosing who their joint venture partners are.
Yep.
So I'm interested to see whether agents survive. I think. Well, we'll see. I mean,
I'm of two minds on that. I think the agent role will evolve. I think the middleman concept is going to get lesser and lesser and lesser as time goes on, because reality is, especially today. Okay, I did not go to your agent. I did not go through any of your management team. I said, hey, Dave, you want to come on my podcast? You said, sure, why not, right? So there was a lot of middleman cut out. I actually was able to speak directly to you, and we made an agreement, and you're here, and I'm making an ass of myself in front of you, and we're all having a good time, right? But the point, but there are situations, I do see this for sure, where agents are still going to be very valuable. Among them, right, is, okay, I'm terrified of dealing with Hollywood. Not because I'm necessarily terrified of the people, but the nature of that business is a very different business. I think any agent that has disciplines in multiple mediums, any discipline, like they can sell to movies, they can sell to video game companies, they can sell to like all these different things for you, they are going to be secure. Because although I may be good at selling at a podcast, or I may be good at selling to people directly, I am not going to have the reach and range some of these people have. And those contacts will, I think, at least for the short term, right, save some jobs that way. Consequently, any agents I think that are just focusing on the book aspect of the business, they're going to go extinct. Because I think what's going to happen there is, we've had to take more and more ownership of our brands, as you're saying, as a business. Well, if I can reach my book audience by myself, I don't need an agent, right? If I can reach a publisher on my own, I don't need an agent, right? Heck, I may not even need a publisher. A publisher would have to offer me a certain reach that I can't get on my own, right? And that's another reality that's going to be there. Like, there's going to be traditional publishers trying to get these authors, and some authors are going to be like, hey, listen, lucratively speaking, I make more money on my own. What do you offer that I don't have that I need? And that's going to be a big part of it going forward too. So I think will the agent survive? Yes. Will the agent have to evolve? Yes. But I think so does, much like the publisher. I think the rest of the industry has to change how it approaches things.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about terms, long term versus short term. What the free market is really, really good at. And book publishing is basically a free market.
Yeah.
Unlike healthcare or education, the government's not in here messing around. There are subsidies in some countries for publishing. There are also subsidies for Hollywood filmmaking, but it's not nearly to the extent that you see other kinds of industries. It's a fairly free market.
Yeah.
What the free market is really good at doing is squeezing out cost.
Yes.
Especially by leaning on the producer and leaning on the middleman.
Yes.
Okay. The agent is quintessentially a middleman.
Yes.
So the question will become, if a publishing house finds a way that says, you know what, we can keep our revenues up and we're still just as happy with the stories we publish if we use method X to find authors instead of agents, I think they'll stop using agents.
Yeah.
Because that 15% that the agent gets can be split.
Yep.
50-50. The author can make more, the publishing house can make more, everyone's happy. And the same thing in film. Now, what could that be? Well, we don't have that yet. I will tell you that as early as 20 years ago, Francis Ford Coppola had a website, I think it was called Zootrope.
Yes.
That's his production company. What's the website called? I forget the website. There's a website so back when I was associate in the law firm, I was writing spec scripts in my spare time. Never went anywhere. I submitted them, whatever. But there was a website. This is pretty cutting edge in 2000. Okay, it still hasn't happened yet. But the idea of the website was kind of like a social media site where you get on, you share your scripts, you get feedback from other people. People could vote your script up, and it was a way for scripts to come to the attention of producers. I think a few of those films are coming out of that website, and I haven't followed it, but I think some of those movies have gotten made. But I think things like that, or if you use an AI to sort your slush pile. So you said, look, I'm not going to have even an unpaid intern read them first. Every book's going to be scanned by an AI, and you can knock out, frankly, 90% of the books with an AI because you're going to say, look, the basic grammar's not there, or if the AI simply cannot identify a plot, right? If I can use things other than an agent, I can squeeze out that cost. I think that long term that will happen.
Yes, no, I agree with you. I don't know if the short term it will though. I'm not sure about the short term. I think we're still at that point where the average reach now, right, is still not quite. I'm connected to a lot of people doing this podcast. I know a lot of people in a lot of places. Even I don't have a full range at some of these agents who spend their whole days just networking with certain people. And that's what I think that's what the agent really sells you. Yes, it is a middleman thing, but it's also the contact and the reach to get certain things. Short term, I don't know if after this we hit that point or not. Long term, I do agree with you. I do agree with you long term. When is that threshold point? I have honestly no idea.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be even. I think it would have to. I think so. First of all, I'm actually relatively optimistic. I think there are a lot of reasons to be optimistic. That's a whole other conversation. I don't think we're going to be like bunkered down in 3 months in a year with the end of the world happening. There's a lot of reasons to kind of go, look, this is bad, but it's not the end of the world.
Oh, so absolutely. If we want to go there, we can. I'm good with that. But whatever.
So I'm with you. I think short term, we're going to all come out of the cave in May, blinking, paler, fatter, and go, all right, back to more or less life. But I think then there'll be knock-on effects with some businesses going out of business, some changing their models. So I think, to your point, we will see an acceleration of change.
Yes. I agree with that. Like you faded out there for just a second. Like I said, an acceleration of change. Did you say anything after that?
Nope, that was it. I think we'll see an acceleration of change.
Okay.
I don't know how fast. I think it'll depend on how bad things get and how long. And I'm pretty optimistic. So I don't think it will be huge.
Yeah.
But I think we're getting there.
Well, like I said, so for me, this has been the busiest week of my life. Legitimately, like one of the busiest weeks of my life. I quit my job to freelance, and it has been crazy. I've done 4 things already. I'm on my 3rd official paid job right now. I feel like I wonder if I was crazy, and I might still be freaking crazy. But so far, I've been busy. I can't speak the same for you. I mean, you sound like you've been busy stuff with pitches. I think honestly, this is looking back, as scary as this is for a lot of people, this is such a unique opportunity for everybody because it's a pause, right? All of us, like for all intents and purposes, this is a pause. We get to look at, you get to stop, you get to look in the mirror, you get to go, okay, what can I do? That's what I did, and like one of the things they're talking about, like from a publishing standpoint, I decided to produce my own audiobook on the fly. I'm not going to pretend it's good. I don't know. I'm having a blast doing it, but I don't know. But I've learned so much in just the last 2 weeks, right? And I'm also, I took it to the next step, and I'll mention, I'll do it off the show. That way I don't feel like I'm pressuring you to do something you don't necessarily want to do. But I've started to invite other authors to come and read as well, so make it a full hour. And my inspiration for that was C.S. Lewis. Because C.S. Lewis, during World War II, read Mere Christianity while London was being bombed. And I thought, you know what? The biggest way that we show that life goes on is we share our stories now. John 12 Hawk said this best. Stories are, all art is an expression of hope. And so I think more than anything right now, art should be, like what we're doing right now. We have this opportunity right now to try different things, learn different things, but still ultimately share things because right now it's needed. Like, as scary and as bleak as this is to some people, I faced my own apocalypse 12 years ago. So I went straight into acceptance. Okay, let's see what we can make out of this time. Because honestly, this time, for however long it's going to last, I am going to do my thing. I'm not going to change a damn thing. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to have a blast doing it. And if I fail spectacularly, I'm broke like everybody else. Big deal. I know what no money's like. I can handle it. So the thing is, right, this is the time to experiment. This is the time to be bold. This is the time to say, here I am, world. Let's just kick some ass. Let's have a good time. Let's share our stories now. And so I've done that. The moment the first week happened, I released my first chapter. Second week, second chapter. Third week, not third release, but also my first author. Fourth one goes up tonight, my 350th episode. Another author's joining it, and I'm having a blast. And I think, like, I'm taking it like, screw fear. I'm not going to be afraid of what's going to come next. I'm going to embrace what comes next, and I'm going to love every second of it. Because for new beginnings, biblical verse, for the new to come, the old must pass. So the old right now is passing, and it's going to be a painful thing, but perhaps in the long term, and this is where I'm very optimistic, it might be a better thing.
You know, that's really interesting. There's the apocalyptic idea, the idea that the end of the world is about to happen.
Yes.
Shows up all the time. The Dead Sea Scrolls people thought the end of the world was happening. Paul, in some of his writings, thought Jesus was coming back imminently.
Yes.
Right? We saw an apocalyptic fervor around the year 1000, and with the coming of Shabbatai Zvi, and right, in 1999. And in a sense, that strain of thinking is always wrong, but in a sense it's always right.
Yes.
And the sense that it's always right is this, that every day the old world is rolled up like a scroll and a new world has come, right? And your personal end of the world is going to happen, and it's going to happen suddenly, and it might happen when we hang up on this call. I might fall down and die of a heart attack, right? And so there's a piece of that insight that says, live realized now.
Yeah.
Make your beauty now. Be the person you want to be now, because you don't know.
And that's it. In these times, especially when everything is so uncertain, you should try to be the best person you can be. Look, you don't know. But the thing is, you didn't know what you didn't, even before this all happened. You didn't know then either. Like we took stuff for granted. So now that this is gone, the stuff we took for granted, what do we have? I'm hoping people can wake up to the fact that we realize we have the exact same thing we had before. In one real sense, is that uncertainty has always been there. The only difference now is we're aware of it. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. We can change it. We can reimagine ourselves at any time. And that's an amazing thing, actually. Not a bad thing. That's a great thing. All endings are beginnings. So.
Yeah, that is a great insight. And I guess I want to say two things, and maybe they move in opposite directions. One of the best things I've seen in social media, and I should say I am a very frequent participant in social media, and I am also very reluctant. The thing is, I'm building a readership, and the easiest way to stay in touch is by Facebook. So I do it a lot, and the problem is I also hate Facebook.
I respect that opinion, actually, yes.
Having having said that, one of the coolest things that's happened in the last 2 weeks, and you see a lot of fear. People are afraid, and they're saying mean things to each other. And when I say they, I mean I am also. I lose my temper more easily. My skin is thinner. There's tension. One of the great things that's happened is that people have taken to sharing beauty. And so I have a lot of friends who are reading their stories, reading books one chapter at a time, or not their own books. I've got a friend who's reading, who is not Brandon Mull, the author of Fablehaven, but who is reading Fablehaven one chapter at a time. And her idea is, if you're home with your kids and they're doing homeschool online, but now they're done by noon and you're pulling your hair out, hey, you know what? I'll put it in front of me here on YouTube and I'll read a chapter a day of Fablehaven to them. People are performing music and they're reading poetry and they're, and
doing virtual open mics, and it's cool. It's really cool. Yeah,
that's great. The other thing I just want to say, and I don't think you disagree, and I'm not saying this disagree with you at all. But I think you and I both also, we've already said this. There are casualties.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
People who are losing their jobs, and holy crap, I want to help them, and I feel for anyone who's been furloughed with no notice of when they're getting back, or anyone who's been ordered to shut their business by the state.
So I'll tell you a brutal story. This one, I was in Vancouver. I was still working my day job. My day job was considered an essential job. If I had still stayed in Vancouver, I'd still be working now. So I would go, because it's a heavy lifting job, because it's a warehouse job. I would stop at these Jugo juice for like the equivalent of a protein shake, just because I knew going in I was about to go through a real physical strain. And that last week I was there was this family, and it was a father with two daughters, and they were scared, and because one, they were Chinese, but two, their business was sooner or later going to close. Sooner or later they were going to be ordered to close, and they knew it. And that's terrifying, especially in Vancouver with the rents being as high as they are. There's been no like the one big failure in North America is there's been no rent or mortgage freezes. It would mitigate some of the damage being done tremendously right now if that was the case. But that's not what's happened.
True. The challenge, of course, being that landlords are not all necessarily rich either, and so you're going to just choose a different person to go out of business.
I know. It's such a catch-20. It's such a catch-22, right?
Yep.
It's such a catch-22. But the thing is, right?
It's wonderful where those parties can get together and negotiate the landlord.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. And also, I mean, I think in this situation, I think smart landlords who want to keep their tenants for a long haul are biting the bullet now because they know at some point they're going to get that money back. Especially if they own it outright, they can do that. It's when you're just buying a property. It's when you've just done things that this has happened.
Mortgage and taxes and stuff. And,
yeah. That's when it gets brutal, right? That's when it gets freaking brutal. And I felt for them because I knew, like, if you shut down, you're probably not opening up again, and that's sad. Like, that is incredibly sad, and it's not just them, it's so many stores, and this is, when I went through my own personal apocalypse 12 years ago, I had to reassess my own dreams and my own goals, and one of the hardest things I had to do was let some of them go, at least for the time being. I just realized, like, it's not the time, it's not the place. And I'm making this sound so freaking easy. It's not, because you gotta really look in the mirror, because you worked your ass off. That's how you put food on the table, and you don't know what's coming next. And that's a scary, scary thing. But at the same token, it's out of your hands. And that's the other thing you gotta kind of accept too. It's like, this is nothing to do with what you did. It just has to do with the circumstances of the time, and it sucks. And you deserve better. But you have to let it go. And that is a hard pill to swallow. So.
And to an extent, and you've already sort of used this language.
Yeah.
What you're really doing is you're seeing through a bunch of illusions.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because getting a steady paycheck, there's an illusion that you'll always get a steady paycheck.
Absolutely.
But in fact, that's not guaranteed.
Nothing is.
All kinds of things can take it away.
Yeah.
And if you have steady cash flow from customers, you have the illusion that will always continue that way. And so if we can have that illusion kind of taken away in a way that is not doesn't destroy us,
yes,
then it can be a moment of real growth. This happened to me when I was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, my company was acquired. I didn't own it, but I was a sort of senior.
Yeah.
I reported to the general counsel. I was the director of corporate legal. The company was acquired. I lost my job. And that was really, in some ways, the moment of me taking ownership of my life. That's when I decided to start writing. So you can measure how long it's taken me to do everything, because I started about now, just under 10 years ago.
Yes.
And I'm really happy it happened. But it was terrifying.
Oh yeah. Well, it always is, because usually when it hits you, you're not ready for it, like, at all. It just hits you, and then it feels like it keeps hitting you over and over and over again, until you come to a realization. It's like, for me, I had to let everything go. I remembered what really mattered to me. I went back. I went to Calgary. My life picked up. I've dealt with some demons. I accidentally stumbled into a bunch of things I'm doing now, and I've just kept going. Like in your case, I don't know what your big realization was, but you came to it, like, you came to your own, like, ownership of your life, and you've been going ever since. And this is why I think when you and I are similar in this way, we're both looking at this as a moment in time, not necessarily as the heavy apocalyptic adversity it is. It can be for some people, I should say, but rather it's a moment in time that will eventually pass. And in that moment, you take the time to learn things.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. Learn things, develop skills, make contacts, reflect. And I really hope that no one is out of a job here for more than a month. I think that's not going to be the case. I think we're going to have some real economic casualties, but I think the epidemic itself will pass soon.
Basically, yeah, it can go either way. I think the economic fallout is going to be far more long-term devastating than this is. I agree with you, especially in the States. Oh my God, that looks brutal. What's happening there? My regards to you and yours as well. Just because, man, I don't know what the situation is, but God bless. Good luck. I hope the best.
Well, and to you guys too. Sounds like your dad was ahead of the curve in being online, so maybe that's going to help.
We're fine. I honestly, as far as that goes, like, we're both fine. I for whatever reason, I had this urge when I was in Vancouver to save my money, and I was in a situation where I could. Right? It's not forever, right? But I'm good for a while. Like, not like, so even if, let's say, I go for unemployment, it doesn't happen, I'm good. I don't need to worry. I'm in a very fortunate position for me. So I can look at it a little differently, right? I was prepared this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a position of luxury.
Yeah.
Compared to some, and you know it. And I'm in a similarly luxurious position. Like, this is going to have to get seriously bad to really break me financially. It's hurting. It's already hurting, but it's not. I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, it's a storm. You weather the storm, and that for you at this point. For some people, this is going. Yeah, and that's the brutal part. But yeah, right, and that's unfortunately, which is the way things have been done. It's I don't know. Like, I don't know what else. I mean, looking at it, it is what it is. I'm just hoping that the new opportunities that come also help balance what has been lost too. Because that is usually when again the new things come, different problems arise, different needs can happen, and people can meet those needs depending on what skills and training they have. So, right, and that's what I'm hoping to. If the jobs don't come back, that whoever is out there can find something that their skills can apply to that is actually going to be needed. So,
yeah.
This
I got an irrelevant piece of trivia for you.
Okay.
And this, unfortunately, since you're going to take the audio for your podcast, this is not going to make any sense to people who are listening.
I can describe it afterwards if you want, so it's all good.
Sure. Do you know the name Stephen R. Covey? You recognize Stephen R. Covey?
I know that name. I do know it.
7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which sold about 1 billion copies.
Yes.
Millions of people have had the 7 Habits training. So here's a piece of trivia. This house, which my wife and I own, is Sandra and Stephen R. Covey's original house.
Really?
Built in 1958. So when he wrote his books in like the 80s, it was in this house. And not only was it in this house, it was in this room. Because the room I'm standing in is the only room that's never been renovated. The rest of the house got renovated in the 90s, and we're updating little bits.
Well, you have
this
to,
is
yeah.
the original 1958 decor Stephen R. Covey original office. So it's got these kind of rickety wooden walls.
That's so cool.
It's got the popcorn style ceiling.
I remember houses like that. Yeah. That's cool,
so,
man.
So the whole office is decorated like sort of you would decorate your office in the heart of the Cold War, and the reason is because that's when this office was decorated.
Yeah, and it's a cool place, man. You have a little bit of magic around you at all times.
Well, it's all of Stephen R. Covey's skin cells trapped in the shag carpet. I think is what it is. His aura is coming out of the carpet to feed my writing mojo.
Yeah. So did you read? I should ask this. Did you read the book?
I have read 7 Habits.
Yeah.
It's pretty good, actually. It's one of those things, it's one of those kinds of trainings where if you read it, think about it, it's mostly sort of things that your grandma might have told you. Like, hey, invest in education, son, or think about this before you do it, you know? It's not like learning a new skill, like if you learn to shoot a bow or something where you're like, I had no idea. It's actually all stuff you've really heard before, kind of put together in a cogent way to say, look, you do these 7 things, it's going to help. You're going to have another way to think about it is it's kind of the middle class deal. What has been the middle class deal, the bourgeois deal for like 400 years. Hey man, be a good neighbor, invest in education, you know, play by the rules, try and find win-win solutions for everybody, and you're probably going to be able to build a decent life.
Yes.
So yeah, good book. Useful, you know, there's no ground-shaking insights where you go, what? It's more like, yeah, okay.
This works. Yeah, this works. And you know, that stuff never goes old or never goes out of style. So how'd you get the house?
You know, we were looking for a house. We had basically 2 incompatible goals. One was we had to be able to afford the house, and the other was my wife, who is also a novelist, and I both wanted offices, and we wanted a bedroom for each of our 3 kids, and we wanted a guest bedroom plus our bedroom. We're like, wow, we want a 7-bedroom house. I don't think we can afford anything. But it turns out that the interim owners between the Coveys and us basically did no maintenance. Nothing. Jack, nothing for 10 years. So the house has been on the market for a long time. No one wanted to buy it. So we bought it. We got it really cheap. We've had to replace all the furnaces and the air conditioning, and we had to replace the water heater, and the roof is going to go next, and the kitchen floor we already did, and that's the price. But it meant we could get this big old house, and by just sheer funky coincidence, it happens to be Sandra and Stephen R. Covey's house.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's not poetry, I think. That's not poetry for you guys. And also, sometimes it goes to show you if you put it out there, sometimes you find it. Sometimes it just comes to you. Maybe not the way you expect, but it does come to you. So
there are a couple other things today reminded me that there's odd poetry in existence. Things come around. There are connections. This is kind of one of them. I'm a trainer and I'm a writer, and here I am by sort of chance in Stephen R. Covey's office.
Yes. So it kind of just and based on what I've read about your stuff online, it suits you quite well. So yes. So just out of curiosity, since you saw the guitar earlier, do you play? What do you play?
Yeah, I suck. Well,
sucking is okay.
So yeah, well, you have to suck before you can be okay. I'm old enough that I'm never going to reach the point where I'm okay. I'm just going to suck until I die. But I'm okay with that. So so I taught myself to play with folk and blues and some bluegrass stuff. I have always been interested, more in the song and story aspect than in like being a guitar virtuoso.
Yes.
Right? Like that's not where I spend my time because I'm not that interested in it. So I'm sort of a singer-songwriter. Some of my books, every one of my Rock Band Fights Evil books has a song in it. Witchy Eye, each of those books has an album worth of songs in it. The Witchy Eye album was released. I've almost got the Witchy Winter album done. I need to finish that while I'm in lockdown here. Other books have individual songs. When I go to conventions, I sing. These are all songs, well, they're mostly songs I have written, and I sing to market, I sing to advertise. One thing I'm doing now, sort of, the risk of sounding like I'm tooting my own horn, I don't mean to do that, but starting about 2 weeks ago, no, it's more than 2 weeks ago now, it's like 2.5 weeks ago, I said, you know what, so it was when the social distancing stuff was really just starting. I think here it was before our governor had issued his shelter-in-place order, or whatever it is. I said, I'm going to start just putting 2 songs a day on Facebook. So if you go down my wall, you'll see a couple times only been 1, but every day I've sung 1 or usually 2 songs and put them on Facebook. And I'll just show up whenever I can. Usually it's kind of late morning and go, here's 2 songs. And I plan to go all the way through April, which means I can't just play songs that I wrote. So mostly it's folk songs or sometimes hymns or kind of classic rock or country songs. I did yesterday I was playing and someone said, oh, you should do a science fiction rewrite of The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. And I said, I don't know that song, but if you do a rewrite, I'll sing it. And he did. And so he emailed me rewritten science fiction lyrics for The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Nice.
About like a spaceship going into a wormhole and never coming out. So this morning I sang 2 songs, and one of them was this technically you call it filk. A science fiction or fantasy folk music parody of Gordon Lightfoot. So, so I've been doing
That's awesome.
By the way.
That's awesome.
But I had a little harp rack with a harmonica, so like a couple points in the song I stopped and blew a few harmonica notes while I'm playing.
That's awesome.
So that's my tiny and sort of ridiculous contribution to try and help people on Facebook to feel calm.
So this is what I'm doing. I go to 5 random people on my Facebook friends list, and I tell them why I appreciate them.
Oh, that's cool. That's lovely.
Yeah. I just go to 5 random people every day, and I remember this because for me, I when I was leaving my day job in Calgary to go to Vancouver, I thanked everybody that I worked with over the years, and I just saw the look on everybody's faces light up because they never again it's something they never expected. And I just realized people appreciate being appreciated. They just do. And so the 2 most powerful things you can say to somebody are thank you and I love you. Right? So I thought, well, I can't be, I'm going to try to be as honest as I can. I can say thank you to everybody. And in so doing, maybe, and I've done it to a few people, make their day. In other words, and that to me is my little contribution. I have a challenge for you. So I went to Spider Robinson's Beatles concert in Vancouver. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to check it out. So Spider and a couple of his friends, they actually do Beatles songs. Beatles songs are way harder than most people realize, right? If you haven't done one yet, you should try one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will take a look.
Yeah.
There's some good musicians up there. Now, it won't be tomorrow, because tomorrow I've got lined up... It's Sunday, so we'll do a couple of gospel songs.
Okay.
Go Down Moses and Jesus Met the Woman at the Well.
Okay.
And I've been being pressured to do Firefly songs, the Hero of Canton and the Firefly theme. But you're not the first person to say Beatles, and I do...
They are hard...
So you gotta play a Monkees song. So I went out and learned how to play I'm a Believer.
Yeah, I'm a Believer is good. That's a good one. But Beatles is harder than it seems. Yeah,
Okay, I believe you.
yeah. So I'm just going, but so pick an easy one from them. Gospel. I think my favorite ones, although it's a long song, Before the Throne of God Above is a really good one. That's one of my personal favorites. So.
Before the Throne of God Above. Who's that by? You know?
It's an oldie. It's a 100-year-old like song. It's been redone a few times. Sonic Flood did that one about 10 years ago, and that's the one I really like. It's powerful. Like it's just a really, really powerful song. Before the throne of God above, a strong and perfect plea, a great high priest whose name is love, whoever live and intercedes for me. It's my favorite like gospel song. Because when especially when I do feel down, those rare moments I feel down, and I'm like, that song just is really, really powerful, and I just like, wow. Especially when you get to I think the second verse is my favorite one. It just talks about the fact that when Satan tempts me to despair and tells me of the guilt within, but when I look, I see him there, the one who made an end to all my sins. It's old. It's really, really old, but it's a really, really powerful song. So, a bit long, but I don't know what your average song length is. But if you want to do something like that,
yeah, I like that. I like some of the old hymns, the old songs. I was getting confused. It's Charles Wesley and John Wesley. Charles Wesley is the hymn writer, right? Some old Methodist hymns. Also Isaac Watts, who wrote a lot of stuff in the 17th century. Is a favorite of mine. So I didn't know this one, so I'm going to look it up. I found the lyrics online. And, this is talking about a 2003 release, but I think it's got to be older than that.
Well, the song's way older than that, but that's their cover. They covered it in that.
Right.
Yeah, they covered it. It's a way older song. It's like, I think like the lyrics I could find as old as like, I think it's like 1890. Like it's been around a while. So it's powerful. But anyway, Mr. Dave.
That's the tip.
What do you think? Think we got an interview here?
Yeah, it feels good.
It feels good? It feels good? Okay. So, why don't you plug your most recent release, and how can people find you, and how can people come hear you sing?
Well, the easiest way to hear me sing is to follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/dave.butler.16. 16 is my URL. You can come friend me. As long as you look like a real person, I'll happily friend you. I've got like 2,000 friends slots left. My most recent book was called The Cunning Man. It was co-written with Aaron Michael Ritchie. It's about a Great Depression era sugar beet farmer who is also a practitioner of traditional magic. Grew up learning farming and traditional magic from his grandma Hetty, and now uses traditional magic to battle the demons of the Great Depression. That's great.
That sounds awesome, actually.
It is awesome. It's a little bit like Old Nathan or Silver John, the Balladeer stories by Manly Wade Wellman. So it's a kind of genre. Speaking of genre, its technical genre is probably best described as occult detective. But it's sort of like the urban fantasy of the old weird America, is what it is.
There's some cool mythology in that, my friend. There really is. So, how can people find you on any of the Twitter, the Instagram, or you got a webpage?
On Twitter I'm at David John Butler, John John, at David John Butler, and my website is davidjohnbutler.com. And I'm pretty inoffensive and easy to get along with on social media. So come connect with me at any of those spots. My website lists places where I appear. Right now I am not, but usually I go to sort of 10 to 20 cons a year, so I'm out singing and talking to people and reading and stuff. Most years, once or twice a month. This year is a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely, but it is the way it is. Yeah. This episode of Just Joshing is sponsored by Wall of Wishes. That's right, Susie Vidori is launching the final book of her Aurora-nominated trilogy 3 months early. Wall of Wishes is now out June 30th, and pre-orders for Owl's Nest books start June 21st. Starting June 21st, we will celebrate this launch with our events, contests, and more throughout the web. Check out Owl's Nest Books for more details, and check out Susie Vidori to find out just what's coming up. And that was my conversation with Dave Butler. In the Palace of Shadows and Joy comes out July 7th. You can definitely pick that up. That is the book on the cover as well. So there will be an order form there. You can just fill out, order the book. Dave's a great writer, and he's a great human being, and I really was thrilled to have him on my show. So Dave, if you want to come back on my show, you feel free to do so anytime. And that really is it for this episode of Just Joshing. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so a number of different ways. Subscribe to the podcast. I'm on practically every podcast platform you can imagine: iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher. Man, more. Just find it, click on the subscribe button, share it, let people know I'm out there, because, my podcast is awesome and made of cheese. But even if you feel it's not, that's fine too. Just let people know it's out there. My book, The Cloud Diver, is currently available on Amazon exclusively. Take a look if you like it. Do the blending program. You can do it that way, or you can actually just buy it. So if you want to support the podcast and you have a couple bucks, it'd be a great way to do it. I have merchandise as well. You can take a look at jpenteloresco.redbubble.com for more details. Also, you can look at my YouTube channel, Joshua Penteloresco. The Wall Wishes Challenge is up there now. 312 episodes of my podcast are up there, and there's more up there as well. My Twitter and Instagram's at jpenteloresco. My Facebook page is Josh Penteloresco, author, podcaster. I'm on LinkedIn as well. Come say hi. Stay inspired, guys. Chase joy in this time. And remember, life goes on.
Josh.